it's not possible to overstate the power of relationships. We just touched on a few things here.
I always wanted to create a place that I want to work, right? I spent a ton of time there.
This is very official feeling. I'm just going to say that right out of the gate. Yeah. All right, so I am super excited to be here with two of my close friends in the industry. We are debuting the Restoration Masterclass series for 2024. We are doing Masterclass on power skills is where I'm going with this. Power skills is the topic for this year. We are really excited to talk about that. I'm going to toss it over to Mandy to kind of introduce herself and also tell them a little bit about, before we toss it over to Scott, what power skills is, what it means, in case people don't know.
Yes. So I'm Mandy with Answerforce, and power skills is really something that it stands out because it's really what soft skills are, and it takes it to another level. It's being able to dissect what soft skills are in each little bit, so relationship building and being able to communicate. So effective ways of communications is what really makes up power skills. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Scott. Scott Severe with CoreLogic, and Scott, take it from here.
So I'm Scott Severe. I like people. I like these people a lot. And I think that's why they asked me to come on this. But I've been around the industry for longer than I'd like to say. But my business background, I came up through sales and marketing most of the time, or construction. We were doing basement remodels in Utah when Hurricane Andrew hit back in a long time ago, we'll just say. And anyway, so we went out there and worked for a year and got a lot of experience. Came back, wanted to try sales, answered an ad in the paper for Exactware, and started working at Exactware as employee number 42.
An ad in the paper.
And I came home. I had big goals. I came home the first day, and my wife said, "How'd it go?" I said, "Great, but we got to move to Wyoming." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because I want to run sales someday." And their sales office was still in Wyoming at the time.
Okay.
Because it started as a family business, and they grew out from there. So I never had to move to Wyoming, but there's a lot of good, strong Wyoming roots in their company still, and a lot of great people. But so I was there for 10 years. Was their first legit real salesperson, because the founders typically do sales when you first start out. And so I was in that second 10 years where they really had a good growth curve because of Exact Analysis. So I got to be a part of a lot of things and got to learn a lot and meet a lot of people. Yeah. And then did some entrepreneurial things. Had most notably Client Runner, which was a competitor to NextGear's Dash product. And we were the better company, the better software, but somehow Garrett just likes to win, and he's really good at it. And I let him win.
Sure.
And so we got together. We were the first of several acquisitions over the last few years, and then we were bundled up and acquired by CoreLogic. So now we're all here. In fact, Garrett put together a really incredible executive team, and they all came over. Usually you see a bunch of them leave after an acquisition of that size and magnitude. So it's been really fun, and it does tie back to relationships, because all those steps in the way typically happen because I had either an idea of where I wanted to go, but it was all centered around relationships.
Yes. So my first question for you is, thinking through your career where you've been in sales, and now your current title is Senior Vice President of Alliances and Industry Relations.
Nicely
I'm pretty
done.
sure. And so that's all, you literally made a career from yourself based on relationships. That's pretty awesome. So when did you realize in your career how key relationships were to success?
So intuitively, I always knew it was important. Because I'm a relationship person. For example, and then I'll come back to how I knew.
Yes. Stories are great.
I tend to go down rabbit holes, so you got to bring me back if I forget where I'm going. But when I was in college, university, and I went there on scholarship, lost my scholarship. It was an interesting experience, but how you have these groups and you just kind of get to know them and you're doing stuff. Well, I didn't want to be limited by what they were doing, which was a lot of times studying. And so I had 6 friend groups. And the beauty to that is you get to see university life from a lot of perspectives. And so I got to learn a lot, meet a lot of people. And I procrastinated a lot. So So anyway, school became a relationship foundational thing for me, but I always felt like I was failing. I didn't feel like if I was going back, I'd say, hey, that's really important. A percentage of, you should, I was giving it 100%. It should have been like a percentage of my mix, but those relationships actually trained me and prepared me for what I'm doing now. And we often talk in the restoration industry that nobody sat in high school or college and said, I want to stand in sewage and 2 a.m. and make calls and deal with all the difficulties that you get in this environment. Or even on the insurance side, people are like, hey, I want to go be an adjuster. Maybe they had somebody they knew was an adjuster, so there's some people that said, yeah, I want to do that. But for the most part, your career happens to you along the way. And so all those experiences you can get, had really good advice. I think it was David Silver, I'm not sure, but he said early in your career, say yes to everything. And because you don't know where it's going to go, and it's going to give you experience, and you just want to get in there and get moving.
Right.
And then later in your career, kind of where I'm at, if it's not a hell yes, then don't do it. Just say no. And because you kind of know where your skill sets are and where you lie. So, that's kind of where I'm getting.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question
It
thoroughly
does.
enough?
It
Because
does
I've got
answer
more.
the question.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and that's a great segue into kind of the second question, which is with relationships, it usually requires an element of trust. So what would you say, kind of speaking on that, how did you build that element into the relationship period, into the relationship part, as well as how you feel trust really, like the part trust has to play in relationship building?
For sure. First of all, I think trust is currency. It's huge. Trust is huge. And you burn trust, it's really hard to get it back. You build trust over time and it becomes like cement. It's wet, you can move it around, you can do things, but at some point it kind of is what it is. And so you need to value that, first of all. And then secondly, I think just be genuinely curious and enthusiastic. People like to be around people who are interested in them and got a little energy, a little fun, because life is short and you want to enjoy life. So being genuinely curious when you ask somebody a question, you're going to listen to what they said. If you're trying to sell them, which I don't like that part of sales, it's not true, by the way. Sales is education and motivation.
Yes.
And getting, and setting urgency. But you don't have to lie in sales ever. It's just silly, and you don't have to manipulate people. So, and most people have a radar where they can kind of tell, even if you're doing really well in the moment, when you leave, and I call it the echoes, when they start listening to the ripples and the echoes of after your conversation, there's just something that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
People know that. And so you need to be genuinely curious, ask questions and listen, but not as a task. It's listening out of wanting to know better. And when you want to know somebody, they can sense that and they tend to open up. You have to have a safe space, and the trust creates the safe space, and the openness is what bonds you. When you get open, or if you go through something really difficult together or something traumatic, you become fast friends. That's why people who are in wars together, a tip for the single people out there, if you get on a roller coaster, it's scary, you actually bond because of the adrenaline. So there's something that ties you. So that's a whole other thing, and you don't want to manipulate that, but
just
if you guys like each other, that might be a good thing to try.
Yes.
I hate scary movies, so I have to go to a roller coaster. But
I can watch scary movies on mute. Does that help? It's the music that gets you every time.
It builds up.
Yes, it does. I'm curious, kind of so I feel like sometimes people, I'll speak for myself, being a relationship-driven person, you can almost feel like an imposter when people are like, oh, you're a salesperson or whatever. Well, I'm really not a salesperson. I've never considered myself a salesperson. I'm guessing you're the same. So
I think you are a salesperson. I just think the definition needs to be understood better.
That's fair.
Anyway.
Have you talked about this in a breakout session? I'm having a little bit of deja vu here. Is there a term that goes with this? I think that there is.
I don't think so.
But
I don't think I've talked about that specifically, but maybe, because I tend to
go around and talk about different things. Okay, so talk about, I know that you have some experiences from the past where maybe you were performing better than other sales type people with that role because you were so relationship driven. Can you share, do you know where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I do.
A guy,
okay. So what happened there was, I don't tell the story a lot, but I tell it when, and here's another thing, when you tell stories to somebody, if you're building a relationship, it can't be to build you up.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it's not a victory lap. It's this story relates to what you're going through, and I think it might help you. And so typically this story will come out when someone's having a hard time with, you come up, you have perceived and real barriers to overcome with relationships. And there may be someone that doesn't like you who's in a position of power. I was in that situation, perceived or real, I believe it. And it's hard to explain, but they were picking us for a role, and he had a guy that he liked, and he actually kind of moved him in front of me, and I was like really down about it and upset. And a couple of weeks later, they called me and said, hey, we want you to do that job instead. And that guy went a different direction, more suited to his skills. But the executive that was making the original decision didn't like it, and so I struggled with them. And then I would overcompensate by trying to make him like me, and then trying to show him that I didn't need him. And it's almost like a bad relationship, show him I'm strong, but it was all about a manipulation. It wasn't about, hey, I'm trying to be successful here, and how can I be successful, and how can we get what we need, our goals accomplished. So in that situation, I started being really successful, and a lot of it again was the timing of the company, the structure. They were very well put together, but started having success. And so people started saying, hey, that Scott kid's doing pretty good, we like him. And he's like, well, he's just a relationship. He's not really, it was kind of like he's not a full executive, he's not all that. And I took it as a slight for several years that I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And then I got in my career later, I'm looking back going, that's the best label he could have given me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was true. It's not like he was saying something wasn't true. I think I had kind of a chip on my shoulder, feeling like maybe I was an imposter, I wasn't good enough, so it was hitting me in a way that it should have been building me. So.
Well, with that being it seems like the terminology changed, like you said, with sales. You kind of caused it to evolve into relationships. So if someone who is looking at their role and trying to figure out this power skill of relationships, what would your advice be to be able to build on that skill? Because that is definitely a skill.
Yeah, a couple things. One is you got to do it a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you're at a mixer or reception, you can't just talk to people you know and have people introduce you, use one or two. Literally, I was at a dinner last night, and there's some people from our company, but they're from a different part of the world, and so we were all talking, and you're at a long table. So after about a half hour, I got up and I went down there and just sat down and said, hey, what's going on with you guys? I can't hear you down there. I want to meet you. And I had some really fun conversations and got to know people I didn't know just by going down there. So I think the other side of the advice is you're trying to hit quotas, and there's a lot of pressure. And there's a lot written about sales. There's all these things that you're trying to do. And so it's like trying to learn how to hit a golf ball. And one of my favorite jokes is, have you read that book, 17 Swing Thoughts? The 17 Most Important Swing Thoughts?
No.
It's funny.
Not yet.
It's funny because you shouldn't be thinking of 17 things when you're swinging.
Yes, no.
But that's
Yeah,
what
great.
most people do, and that's what most coaches do, is they got all these things in their head. So you have to relax. And anyway, for sales, typically they're trying to figure out what's in it for me, how do I get my quota? In a nice way, and it's not like they're trying to manipulate in a bad way, but it's still, at its core, they're making it about themselves. They need to make it about the other, and then those things will come. And so it's not like you're lazy and you're just having fun. You need to talk business and you do your things, but it's really about building trust. And if you're coming at them saying, what can I get from you? And really, relationships break ties. That's the big secret. Relationships, everyone thinks, oh, I'll make friends with them, then I'm in. It's like, if your product's not good enough, they're going to tell you. So it breaks ties, and it gives you inside information.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you, hey, you should fix these 3 things. I'm hearing about them a lot,
Very true.
you don't have it, or whatever. So they're going to get, it's valuable.
Yes.
But they're not going to buy a product that's not good enough just because you're friends.
Very true.
And you wouldn't be a very good friend if you would let them. So relationships break ties and get you inside information, which is extremely valuable. But they're not going to put you over the finish line. They're going to get you in the mix, and then you got to make it happen. So I think maybe that would be, okay, I can give advice all day, but I think maybe those are two things is, try to think about them. And if you, in everything in life, I've found this, like I'm getting older now, people are like, okay, you're gonna.
Sage advice.
Yes, but I call it black hole sun. So, and it's like a, third grader's level of physics. If you talk to somebody really smart, they'll like, that's not how it works. But if you think of just, you draw it on a whiteboard and you draw the rays from the sun going out and you draw the energy from the black hole going in and the rays of the sun light up our whole Earth. If you see it from space, it's beautiful. It's got life. It's vibrant. All this is happening just because the sun's shining and it's not really needing anything from us in return. And then you got the black hole where everything goes in so deep and so hard that light can't even escape.
Right.
Because it's holding on so tight. And if we're doing that as people, if we're doing that as salespeople, if you're holding on so tight to that sale, you're not going to get it.
No.
And so just be the
Spread the
sun,
rays.
talk to people.
Be the
And,
sun.
so I was going to tell you, so told you about the dinner, but the flip side of that is when you go to a party, and I know him really well, but I can't think of his name. Do you know Sales Octane?
Yes.
Is it Ryan? What's it?
It's
I'm seeing his face right
yes.
now. I can't remember. And this is partly because I'm getting older. But he had a thing where I think I was at a Violan Summit and saw him speak, and he taught just a little snippet. He taught lots of great stuff. But what I took away was how to walk up to somebody.
I see him in my head.
Yeah, me too. I feel really terrible. But basically he says, "Hi, I'm Scott, and you are?"
Michelle.
"Oh, great, Michelle. What do you do?" And then you get them talking, and while
We've
they're
been
talking,
through this. He lives in Kalamazoo. Oh.
he was the speaker at RIA.
I know.
and now our relationship's trashed
Right.
with him. He's like, okay, that is not cool. But your brain has time to function and think, and so it's the easiest way. Or if you're standing in line to get a drink or anything else, I strategically go and get in lines just so I can talk to people. And you're just like, hey, how's it going? And then they start talking. So, and then if you're nervous about that at all, get them talking first. And if he even like had you say, hi, I'm Scott, and you're like, you are, and you say, Michelle, and you say, what do you do? And they ask you what you do, and you say, you first. And make a joke about it, and they will. I've tried this. They will start doing it. So anyway.
Awesome. Well, this is great advice, and I love your stories all the time. So we can sit here and tell stories all day, I am sure.
I just thought of one more.
Go
It's
for
funny.
it.
It's not a relationship, but
It's not a relationship.
but it's funny.
Okay, we're here for it.
Do you ever see the Goldbergs? You ever
Yes.
heard that show? So they had an episode where the older brother is watching VHS tapes to make himself look smarter. And he's the jock guy. Anyway, I won't go into their personalities, but it's so funny because they're like, first of all, you need to wear glasses. And then when someone asks you a question, you take them off. And then they ask the question again, and you stroke your chin, and then you just repeat back what they asked them. And so, like, ask me any question, anything at all. I know it's putting you on the spot, but ask me anything.
So how was your flight in yesterday?
How was my flight in yesterday?
I don't know.
But it's intriguing, right? And you have a conversation. Like, what do you mean by that? I don't know, but when they give you advice, it works even better. I've tried this out as a joke, and I usually use it as a conversation starter, and it ends up working.
Right.
Like,
It breaks the ice.
it's amazing, yeah. I don't know if it actually makes me look smart, but it's like, I was like, why would you do that? They're like, you know what, you're right.
It is better than a lot of the generic, I mean, when you going around or opening reception and you're talking to all the people, it is nice when you approach somebody and the conversation starts off different than kind of the same list of questions that are the normal rundown. So.
And I just thought about it. It's Jim Ryerson from
Thank
Sales
you.
Octane.
Yes.
Mandy wins.
You too. Thank God.
Mandy gets the
I was like,
prize.
should I pull out my phone and Google this? I know that that's weird on video, but we have to think about what it is. Thank you. Good job.
I was thinking Ryan Ryerson.
Ryerson. Right. Yes,
Nice.
you were on the right track. All right. Well, this was an amazing first episode of the new season of the Masterclass. Thank you to Answerforce for being our sponsor this season. I'm very excited to have Mandy hosting some of the episodes with me and without me. Yes. And Scott, thank you very much for being the first guest. We couldn't think of anybody better who understands the value of relationships and power skills. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it?
I would just say it's not possible to overstate the power of relationships.
Yes.
We just touched on a few things here. But I also think most people get it wrong and hit a brick wall if they try to leverage it too soon. It doesn't mean you can't leverage relationships. In fact, if I have a question, I call somebody I know that's done it before and ask them, and leverage relationships all the time, and I give back all the time. But it's not a manipulation. It just needs to be real. And if you will be yourself, but not in a vacuum, if you'll be yourself and constantly be out, reaching out, it'll take shape and you'll figure it out.
Yep.
Well, one of the biggest things I took from what it is that you said is it's be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, genuinely curious.
Yes, genuinely curious.
Yes.
Some people are curious in a manipulative way.
And people can tell, and that doesn't work the way you want.
Yeah.
Let's look for some legit power skills. Thanks for stories. See you soon.